After a disappointing and frustrating season, I have to emphasize a few points. I believe the way this season was written and the way they handled its characters wasn't super well done. I'll be calling out and cutting parts of Season 3 from my explanations and typings. Specifically, Shauna's character arc. Call me dense, but I do not find her descent into madness realistic at all. The character we see in Seasons 1 and 2 is completely unrecognizable from the Shauna in the finale. Her character is so unrecognizable and so out of left field that I'll essentially be pretending that her arc never happened, along with most of the arcs in Season 3, sparingly referencing it if needed. You may think this is cheap or I'm just doing this to support my own typing agendas, but at the end of the day, this is my channel and my opinion, so I don't really care. You may be a new viewer and have no clue what the Enneagram is. In summation, it's a personality system that describes 9 core types of human motivation, behavior, and emotional patterns. Each type represents a distinct worldview and set of core fears and desires. I have brief explanations of each type in my shorts, or you can go to the channel on screen that goes a lot more in depth about each type and the subtypes. If you've watched and consumed all this and still want more, my sources are always linked in the description.
I know. It's so unfair. My dress was gonna be amazing.
Well, hey, at least you can wear it next year.
You don't get it, Van, because nobody asked you.
Okay, you're done.
I see Van as a 9. She represents the 9's internal sloth by not really having her own goals outside of others in the group. 9s are calm, passive, and practical. Even in the adult timeline, Van is seen to be the most mellow and rational. A core trait of the E9 is the inability to make decisions and actions for themselves. Because of their lack of identity, they merge with others in their environment. If you think about it, Van truly has no importance to the plot, other than her relationship with Ty and the other Yellowjackets. In groups, Type 9s are the ones who don't particularly stand out. They tend to blend in and go with the flow without disruption. 9s believe the best strategy to feeling calm and avoiding upset is to go along with what others want. Through this experience of being overlooked and overpowered, a 9 learns to specialize in being someone who's easygoing and accommodating of others.
What she did. Chill out. Oh my God, you get so serious about this shit.
If not influenced by another, Van has literally never made a stance or decision that stood out in any way from the group. As soon as the plane crashes, she merges with the ideals of Lottie, Ty, and the wilderness. Van is a 9 because of her inability to stand out outside of others. The assigned defense mechanism of this type is called dissociation. The way E9 copes with negative emotions is by indulging in the pleasures of their external environment. It's a sort of narcotization, putting oneself to sleep. They may immerse themselves in external stimuli such as food, alcohol, or video games. For this type, it's the best way to cut off painful experiences and emotions.
From Lottie's weird chore chart, and so I went to my truck and did exactly that. Nice. Yeah.
9s water down their experience of life to buffer themselves against pain. The best way to evaluate a character's type is by observing their reaction to trauma and noting their defense mechanism. Van represents the defense mechanism of dissociation best in the adult timeline. The other types do things to cope, whether it's denial, isolation, or internalization. But the 9 just sits in their pain and tries their best to ignore it. This is best represented through observing how the characters in the adult timeline cope with the events of the wilderness. This doesn't provide literal proof, but it provides a good example of how a 9 operates. For example, Ty and Lottie move towards loftier ambitions to tackle their pain. Ty with politics and Lottie with her cult and the idea of the wilderness. But Van just settles down, lives small, and indulges in the simple pleasures of life. You could make a solid argument for either sexual or self-preservation 9, but for the sake of time I'll cut the back and forth and just say she's an SP9. Yes, she merges with people in her environment, but she doesn't narrow in on a specific person. Even though she loves Ty, her soul isn't tied to her. She even rejects Ty on multiple occasions to preserve her independence, and I simply can't see a sexual 9 doing this. To me, Van best represents the self-preservation 9. It's a type characterized by a focus on satisfying one's own hunger and a lack of spirituality. This type often engages in activities like eating, sleeping, playing games, or reading to numb themselves to forget their inner selves. This leads to a loss of spirituality and a disconnection from their true inner selves. The name appetite encompasses not only a desire for food, but also the broader need for physical well-being through concrete experiences. They also desire more alone time, finding solace in solitude and a sense of humor. Their focus on immediate and tangible tasks may lead to a deeper sense of abnegation and seeking comfort in pleasurable activities.
And it's just gonna keep getting colder. And not, I better put on a coat cold. We're talking dying feels like falling asleep cold.
In the group, Ty stood for efficiency and practicality. Something I miss in teen and adult Ty is her ruthlessness, win at all costs attitude.
I'm more about not fucking up nationals.
Oh, come on.
If she plays like she did at States.
Don't worry. That's not gonna happen.
But why does she carry this attitude? I'd assert it's because she's a 3. Like a 3, she chases achievements and accomplishments for a sense of self-worth. 3s cultivate the appearance of success to be seen, heard, and appreciated. Working hard to achieve specific goals enables me to control the things I do and make me successful. The passion of vanity leads E3 to transfer its energy to functional action, to the expectations of the external world. The 3 manipulates itself as a product for sale. This leaves them unaware of what they want except to please others and be effective. Their thirst for inner depth is evident through overwork. With this description, it's obviously difficult to detect a 3 in the wilderness. With a lack of societal structures and overall expectations, the passion of vanity can be borderline undetectable. I'll have to mostly rely on pre to early crash Ty and the adult timeline to make my assessments. When the plane first crashes, she establishes herself as someone reliable.
If they knew where we were, they would be here already. Let's put it to a vote.
She provides solutions and guides the group towards protection. Enneagram 3s are natural leaders. Their leading style doesn't consist of ethos like a 2, but they lead through practicality and rationality. And in the adult timeline, Ty is shown to prioritize her work and career over her emotions. 3's coping strategy provides both a focus on performance and a defense against painful feeling. Doing thus takes precedence over being and feeling for the 3. This can result in the 3 appearing cold and closed off. They tend to overwork themselves to ignore their feelings. Doing seems to bring the desired response of approval from others, while feelings are avoided so as to not create any emotional obstacles. In all, this mirrors the 3's need to identify with their work and image. In a way, 3s fractionalize their identity and the work they produce, sometimes even losing their identity or just having the 2 merge together completely. I actually like to think the other Ty is a metaphor for the Enneagram 3. The flawless image presented by the character juxtaposed with the hidden monster who's unruly and wild. To me, Ty represents the self-preservation 3. The SP3 is the countertype of the 3s, meaning they'll deviate from the typical understanding of a 3. They'll reject the typical showy, loud, attention-seeking of sexual and social 3s. Instead, they prefer to let their results speak for itself. They're characterized by a strong drive to appear productive, responsible, and virtuous to ensure their own safety. They avoid being self-assuming and focus on achieving a sense of security both financially and in terms of material resources. This drive stems from a need to feel autonomous and self-sufficient. They specialize in problem solving and are often consulted for their advice. Their neurotic need is achievements, which are deeply connected to their sense of security. They avoid risky situations and may struggle to form deep connections in relationships. Balancing their achievements with a deep connection to emotions and authentic relationships is a key aspect of their personal growth journey.
Strong word.
Misty. Why? What?
I have these feelings for you, and
One of the more consistent and well-written members of the cast is Misty. We're repeatedly told that her self-worth is equated to the value she offers to others. Immediately, this is indicative of the 2's main neurosis. Enneagram 2s construct a bright, exalted image to be adored and appreciated by others. Their pride requires that the other considers them indispensable and irreplaceable. They go out of their way to help others, and as a result, confuses its own pleasure with giving pleasure to the other. Misty revolves her entire identity around how helpful she is. Her destruction of the transmission box is the peak example of the 2's way of thinking. When the plane first crashes, she makes herself useful. All of her life, she's probably been starved of love and appreciation. So when she begins to be noticed for her actions, she engineers a situation where she can be indefinitely needed. Throughout the show, Misty injects herself into problems with the intention of solving them. Not out of altruism, but because of her need to be needed.
Up about the pee. God, she's in danger here. Take it downstairs and empty it.
Because of this expectation of being validated for their helpfulness, twos can become reactive when their deeds aren't recognized. For the two, the drive to win others' approval through indirect methods such as seduction, strategic giving, is a way to obtain emotional and material support without asking for it. It's easy to see Misty as a self-preservation too. She can be openly childish and naive like an SB2. Despite this, I'd still argue she's a social 2. Yes, social 2s can be losers. We've simply never seen a social 2 like her in media. People see a 2 who's needy and not necessarily authoritative or powerful, and label them an SB2. But when comparing and contrasting the social and conservation 2, you have to explore the subtypes with more depth. Misty's fixation on the Yellowjackets as a group speaks for itself, but this doesn't necessarily make her social instinct. I think what makes her social 2 is the extent to which she attaches herself to the group. She makes it her identity to support and offer her help to this group. The essence of the social E2 is one of a social climber. Deep down, Misty is motivated by the prospect of a better image in the eyes of the group. She makes the effort to connect herself with the most powerful and influential people in the environment to secure her own social standing. She fits the social 2's counterdependency to a T, meaning rather than being dependent, she needs others to depend on her. I used to believe Misty to be an SB2, but this argument from a mutual helped me understand. She has the need to be needed and respected above all else, and the first thing I remembered noticing since the plane crash was that she took charge and made herself the helper. She always stays near the coach, which is another figure of power. SO2s can be fulfilled by just being really close to the powerful individuals. Misty isn't the boldest person in the world, but we should also remember that she is extremely neurotic, especially because she is constantly being excluded from the group she wants to be a part of so badly. Overall, I think Misty represents the social 2, a subtype that represents pride and ambition. They are driven by a desire for power, influence, and the conquest of the environment. They often excel in leadership positions, owning companies, or excelling in fields that grant them a powerful presence in the public eye. SO2s are intellectually powerful, often influencing larger groups or impressing others with their exceptional knowledge. They display a giving-to-get attitude, emphasizing strategic generosity to maintain loyalty and control. Despite their external confidence, they may repress vulnerable emotions, such as shame, fear, and jealousy. They are competitive, protective, and willing to help others, but may struggle with collaboration due to their natural inclination to give orders. Now, a quick break in the video to type the more minor characters that aren't fleshed out enough for full analysis. Sorry to disappoint, I'm aware Lottie is a fan favorite, but I do not think it'd make much sense to type her, especially in analysis format. Yes, it's natural to speculate her type. I've typed her a sexual 5, social 4, and even sexual 9, but I simply don't think it'd be productive to type her. The Enneagram is meant to type people's core fears and desires, and we get neither with Lottie. She is so far gone by the time we get into her character that it's difficult to really understand her. Sure, we can type psychotic characters, for example, sexual 7 Joker, sexual 4 Jinx, social 2 Hannibal, or social 3 Patrick Bateman. However, the difference between Lottie and the other 4 examples is that they have identifiable motives and worldviews. We can confidently say that the Joker is driven by an insatiable desire for pleasure and excitement, a craving for experiencing a wide variety of physical and intellectual stimulation without constraints, hence his E7 typing. But we simply can't make statements like this for Lottie's character. This is because the Joker's illness doesn't erase his literal humanity, while Lottie's turns her into someone who only speaks in riddles and lives to serve the wilderness above all other personal ambitions. Maybe someone smarter than me can make an accurate statement, but for now I'll render her typeless.
Are you joking? You actually think that's why we can't find any game? Because of me? I'm the only one that's even trying.
Natalie has always been one of the most sane characters within the Yellowjackets. She's always been someone grounded, aware of her faults and shortcomings. As well as being grounded, she's definitely shown to be the most healthy among the group. I'd rule Natalie as being a 4. As far as the surface level reasons, she's both authentic and emotional and has a focus on trauma and suffering. Her character is surrounded by themes of overcoming trauma. She differs from the other Yellowjackets in her internalization of her suffering. The 4's emotional passion of envy means comparing themselves and their lives to an ideal and bringing frustration when their life doesn't measure up. They organize their personality around a sense that what is valued and needed is outside of them and somehow unavailable. Envy grows out of a sense of personal deficiency, a belief that others have something that I want that I don't have. The E4 can also have a perception that things come easily to other people, but not to me. This leads the 4 to believe that they're fundamentally broken or flawed. 4s have a tendency to both feel like a misfit and want to stand out as unique and special. For the worst, they have an almost keen eye for what's missing in any given scenario. This lack could be self-directed or towards their environment, but it causes them to be hyper-aware of how a situation could be better. A focus on what's missing can lead to a general dissatisfaction with life. By paying a lot of attention to what they are missing and feeling, they tend to over-identify with their emotions. Natalie's passion of envy is demonstrated through her focus on the traumas of her past. In a way, she lets these moments define the present. She also embraces the burnout, broken image that's been handed to her. She carries the experiences of a difficult home life and social marginalization and lets it define her. Natalie is best representative of the counter 4, or self-preservation 4. These 4s differ from the sexual and social 4s in the way they direct their envy. Envy could be thought of as negative feelings. The sexual 4 directs their envy towards one-to-one connections, bringing others down as a result of their own suffering. The social 4 projects their pain towards a group in hopes of being validated for their flaws. But the self-preservation 4 directs their pain inwards and doesn't let it leak out. The conservation 4 essentially tries their best not to appear as a 4. The SP4 is the most masochistic character because of their desire to endure and endure without complaining. SP4s demand a lot from themselves. Natalie is someone who holds herself to an unrealistic standard, despite being objectively the best of the Yellowjackets.
Hear me?
Actually, I'm worse. I let him die in my place.
She sees herself as the worst and strives to be better. These types internalize their pain, seeking redemption through self-sacrifice and tenacious effort. They are often described as suffered, emphasizing their capacity for self-frustration and endurance. They avoid complaining and endure pain without showing vulnerability, driven by their masochistic tendencies. Despite their stoic exterior, the SP4 often exhibits a humanitarian and empathetic disposition, engaging in activities that address the suffering of others. Their masochistic tendencies stem from a desire for redemption without explicitly talking about their suffering, seeking recognition and appreciation for their self-sacrifices. Their pursuit of tenacity is driven by a quest for merits, where effort and sacrifice are seen as virtues that make them righteous and deserving of love and recognition.
Do you have any idea why I made you team captain this year? Now, obviously, it's not because you're our best player. Shauna's faster, Lottie's got better footwork by a mile. And Thaisa...
Is this a pep talk?
Jackie, you possess something no one else on this team has. Influence. When things get tough out there, those girls are gonna need someone to guide them. Can you handle that?
As the former leader of the team, Jackie is influential and charming. She exists as someone who leads others towards connection and satisfaction. She holds a kind of confident and gracious air about her, but she can also be perceived as being vain and selfish. Despite her flaws, she's adored by her peers because of her ability to please others through her warmth and glamour. Jackie represents the passion of pride through her masked self-centeredness. Type 2s adopt an elevated or idealized view of themselves. They take pride in their ability to make others like them. They have a tendency towards self-aggrandizement or self-inflation. They want to, and often do appear, boundlessly and indispensably generous, helpful, attractive, and supportive. E2s model a persona of someone seeking to create positive connections with others through an attractive, inviting front. Jackie's entire identity as the leader isn't one symbolized by status or personal benefit, but out of a genuine wish to help the team. She wants to make a positive impact on her teammates and uses this position as an opportunity to do so. This mirrors the 2's desire to have love fed to them. They often achieve this through adopting a role where they can become indefinitely needed. Just because Jackie is a leader doesn't make her social dominant. I believe Jackie is a self-preservation too. She doesn't have an emphasis on intellect nor a desire to be close to or have authority. Rather than taking the role of a queen, like a social two, Jackie adopts the role of a princess. The childishness of the SP2 is hard to prove with Jackie, but is undeniably present. Definitely more apparent than the maturity of the social two.
What? These assholes were under 500 all season. Shauna, honk at that thing.
No, they're just gonna think we're like saluting mediocre baseball.
No, they'll know. Try undefeated, bitches! We're going to motherfucking nationals! Woo! Woo!
She also doesn't exhibit the ambition of the social two, the desire to be exceptional or knowledgeable. To compare her to Misty, for example, she doesn't have the desire to actually influence the larger group. She really only wants to play a supportive role. Indicative of the self-preservation instinct, Jackie is after her own comfort and well-being. When the plane crashes, yes, she cares for her team, but she's after her own comfort first and foremost. She regresses into a kind of child, a child that sits back and lets the adults do the work. So in conclusion, she embodies the self-preservation too, which is a type that aims to attract love and attention through childlike tendencies, cuteness, and an unconscious desire for love purely for existing. Their neurotic need is, I, the most important thing, reflecting a childish egocentricity. They seek to be seen without showing themselves and desire to be loved for simply existing. Despite their childlike presentation, the SP2 is the countertype of the twos, exhibiting a more ambivalent approach to relationships. They may experience a stronger need for protection and may unconsciously engineer situations where others take care of them. They may also be self-indulgent, seeking pleasurable experiences to distract themselves from feelings of abandonment and inner deprivation.
I don't really think I'm meant to handle firearms.
What are you writing?
It's my journal.
Like a diary?
Yeah, kind of. It's just my way of trying to make sense of what's going on and how I feel about it. Well, it probably sounds pretentious, but hey, when I'm famous, they can go into the archives, right?
Again, due to what I perceive as bad writing, I see Season 3 Shauna and Seasons 1 through 2 Shauna as two different characters. So as a result, I'll be scrapping any events from Season 3 from my analysis. Season 3 isn't real and never happened. Shauna is such a tragic character, in the events she's subjected to, as well as her deeper psychological self-destruction. She's quiet, yet has a desire to be louder. She wants to make a mark on her environment, but she's simply not that person. On the contrary to Jackie, she's emotionally closed off and avoids drawing attention to herself. She thinks she's been forced into Jackie's shadow, but she's done this to herself. She lets her emotions and grievances bottle up in fear of conflict. Shauna is prone to internalizing her resentment and guilt, especially in close relationships. For these reasons, I disagree with the sexual 4 consensus. The crux of Shauna's character is her emotional repression, a refusal to come into contact with her feelings. This isn't only contradictory to the E4, but especially to the sexual E4, which needs to project their envy onto others. This type would never be one prone to emotional suppression. Shauna's intellectual, introspective, and cold disposition leads me to type her as a 5. She responds to trauma with emotional detachment and withdrawal. The E5's passion for avarice leads Shauna to withhold herself while blocking out the needs of others. In noticing this pattern within herself, she becomes pessimistic about receiving care from others. The E5 believes, I am powerless when it comes to negotiating my needs and desires, and others may not listen anyway, so the safest course of action is to withdraw. This belief creates a reclusive individual who retreats to intellectualism for comfort. They replace interaction with knowledge.
I don't have any makeup.
Then what's that? Come on, Shipman. I'm looking awfully necrotic.
Nice SAT word.
You weren't the only smart one. You just like to think you were.
While considering Shauna's subtype, I think the counter 5 or the sexual 5 is the best fit. A type like the sexual 5 is known to be the most neurotic because of the inherent contradiction between the interpersonality of the sexual instinct and the hyper-independence of the Enneagram 5. a deep need for intimacy, yet a desire for isolation. This duality is best represented through Jackie and Shauna's relationship. There is a clear desire to be closer to Jackie, yet a noticeable withdrawal out of a fear of being hurt.
You sneaking around and whispering with Thaisa, not to mention you acting all distant and weird for weeks, so... spill.
This five is different from the rest because the social and self-preservation fives are more removed from their emotions, and the sexual five is intense, romantic, and more emotionally sensitive. All in all, Shauna is the subtype titled Trust, a type characterized by a strong desire for intimate connections and an idealized form of trust. They are withdrawn and untrusting, fearing emotional hurt. Despite their reluctance to engage socially, they idealize trust and yearn for someone they can feel safe with. They are emotionally sensitive, intense, and passionate, often suffering more and sharing similarities with the E4. They have high, often unrealistic standards for relationships, seeking an idealized form of love and connection that may be challenging to find in the real world. Sexual fives seek complete transparency and openness in their relationships, expecting the same in return. They may engage in idealization of their partners, seeing them as perfect, but may experience disillusionment and emotional inhibition as the relationship progresses.